Good afternoon, everyone. We'll call the meeting to order. First item of business today, we're going to have a presentation by the Kansas County Treasurers. And to lead off, we'll have Mr. Steve Kearney of Kearney and Associates. Welcome to the committee.
About now, yeah. Thank you, Chairman, members of the committee. I am Steve Kearney, and I'm appearing here on behalf of the Kansas County Treasurers Association. We've made some presentations to your committee previously, but we were hoping that with a few new members and some of the other things that have transpired, we would bring just some more information to you about what their duties are and just how complex they are across the state. So today, you're going to hear about the Treasurers Association itself and its purpose, the role of county treasurers, all the various and sundry things that they do. And they're going to present some case studies for you so you can see from large to medium to small how that all plays out across the state of Kansas. And then they're going to update you on the impact of the pandemic and some of the changes both that they put into operation during the height of the pandemic and some of the positive outcomes that have resulted from that. So before we get started, and Chairman, I know you're short on time or more compressed today, just want to introduce two people to you. April Hall, and I think they're both somewhere out here in the ether, is the current president of the association, Sherman County Treasurer since 2012. And before that, she was 6 years with Kennedy & Co. and 16 years at the USDA Farm Services Agency. So a lot of breadth of experience in these folks. Nancy Weeks, she is also out there, and Nancy's a Haskell County Treasurer and Legislative Chair for the Treasurers Association. She's been Treasurer since 1975. She's certified Kansas County Finance Executive and has served as the President of the Association, the Vice President, Secretary and Treasurer, as well as the President of the National Association of County Treasurers, Collectors, and Finance Officers. It's kind of tough to get that all out unless you just slow it way down. So it's NACTFO is the acronym, but for some reason it's a whole lot easier to say. So, Mr. Chairman, our first presenter today is Joe Grisolano. Joe was elected the Crawford County Treasurer in November 2004. Prior to being Treasurer, he served as the Crawford County Deputy Appraiser for 18 years. His involvement with the Treasurers Association has been service on the Legislative Committee and serving as the Association's Secretary, Vice President, and President during his time, as well as the President of the Kansas County Officials Association, if anyone remembers that group of folks as they're put together. So, if I might, Mr. Chairman, Joe.
Mr. Grisolano, welcome to the committee. It's nice to see you again.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chairman Trail and committee members. Could I get you to move forward the slides a few? I think it's slide 4. Yeah, thank you. The Kansas County Treasurers Association was established in 1946 as a statewide organization made up of all 105 county treasurers. KCTA was formed with the purpose of providing mutual assistance, building a more uniform system of keeping accounts in the Treasurer's office, and to advocate for the association through the Kansas Legislature. Our mission statement includes these ideals: to enhance the professional credentials of our members, to maintain high ethical standards within the association, and to ensure all Kansas County treasurers are equitable, fair, and financially responsible to the citizens of Kansas. Next slide, please. KCTA holds an annual conference where officers are elected, a business meeting is held, and certification classes are offered to provide educational opportunities for our members. Additionally, we host a legislative conference in February that includes a reception with all of you that allows our members to network with their legislators. This year, we were unable to host the reception, but we hope to continue that event again in the future. We have several standing committees. One of those is the Treasurer Support Committee, made up of experienced treasurers that provide assistance to any county treasurer needing help or direction. KCTA maintains an educational certification program through Fort Hays State University. Day-long classroom-style courses are offered at each conference, and we also offer several online classes. These courses help treasurers sharpen skills, broaden knowledge, discover new trends, and share experiences and best practices. Treasurers work to earn higher levels of education certification. A county treasurer must complete 102 classroom hours to achieve the highest education level, the Certified Kansas County Finance Executive. Kansas County Treasurers are active in the National Association of County Collectors, Treasurers, and Finance Officers, or NACTFO, the national professional organization for county tax collectors, treasurers, and finance officials all across the United States. Similar to KCTA, NACTFO partners with Wayne State University in Detroit to provide education certification. Many Kansas County treasurers have achieved certification levels through NACTFO. Several serve as committee chairs or committee members. 5 Kansans have served as president of our national association, and 3 have been recognized as the outstanding county treasurer in the United States by NACTFO. Next slide, please. Kansas County treasurers have many duties and responsibilities. Probably the ones most recognized by Kansas citizens are the collection and distribution of property taxes for all taxing authorities. County treasurers send tax bills that include tax levies for the state, cities, schools, hospital districts, rural fire departments, townships, the county, and all other taxing entities. All property tax dollars are collected and distributed by the county treasurer. Some additional duties of county treasurers include acting as the depository for county funds from all departments, keeping detailed records, fund and account reconciliation, and the investing and safekeeping of all county funds. County treasurers also act as agents of the state for the titling and registration of motor vehicles. Additionally, 84 county treasurers offer commercial vehicle registration services, 79 offer driver's license services, 9 offer IRP, International Registration Plan services for interstate commerce carriers. Duties of the county treasurer have expanded in recent years due to a shift in responsibilities from the state to the county for title and registration work. Even in the smallest counties, the county treasurer deals with large amounts of money. Treasurers utilize many forms of modern technology for cash management. These methods include not only cash and checks, but credit and debit cards, ACH and EFT payments, and wire transfers are all tools utilized for receiving and dispersing funds. At the end of our presentation, I would be happy to answer questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Shiloh Hager, Riley County Treasurer. I hope I pronounced your name correctly, or close.
It was perfect. I'm Shiloh Hager, the Riley County Treasurer, and thank you so much for the opportunity to speak this afternoon. If you wouldn't mind go ahead and can you go one more slide, please? One more, please. Our slides are a little bit out of order, but what I'm here to talk to you about today, Joe gave you what all of our different roles are, and I'm here to kind of paint you a picture of our financial situation for one of the biggest roles that we perform, and that's our motor vehicle operations. As he mentioned, we do operate as an agent of the state performing various motor vehicle transactions. Many counties have taken on voluntarily additional transactions such as driver's license renewals and commercial vehicle registration. And we take pride in the work that we provide and the benefit that these services provide to our constituents. But all of these services come at a cost. Since 2012 and the implementation of movers, the county treasurer has taken on additional work that had previously been performed at the state level, such as title approving. This additional work has made it necessary for many offices to hire additional staff. Also, the movers program required additional equipment to perform these transactions, which initially were supplied by the state, and now the maintenance and replacement of the equipment lies solely with the county. The next slides are going to show you 3 case studies and how they relate to the motor vehicle fees collected and the costs associated with managing the motor vehicle operations. In our presentation, we are going to demonstrate a small, medium, and large county. Over the past few years, we have polled our county treasurers, and the picture is very similar across the entire state. And if you wouldn't, okay, you're on the medium county. The medium county is Riley County, and so that's the one I'm going to concentrate on first. Within a typical motor vehicle titling transaction, we collect personal property taxes, registration fees, sales tax, and several miscellaneous fees. The property tax and sales tax are distributed to various taxing entities, including the state of Kansas. On the Riley County case study, you can see the total motor vehicle property tax collected 1.24% has been distributed back to the state, and the rest is divided among the various entities within Riley County. The same can be seen for our commercial motor vehicle fees and our recreational property taxes. The balance of the motor vehicle registration fees collected are split between the county and the state. And as you can tell, it's a disproportional split. On our example, Riley County, 80% is sent to the state and the county retains about 14%. These percentages are also evident in the Johnson County and the Haskell County examples, which is our small and our large example. The fees we do retain are intended to support the motor vehicle operations in the county. Unfortunately, the fees are not enough to cover the costs, which requires the shortage to be subsidized by the general fund. And just to give you an example, in my county, I have 13 employees that perform motor vehicle transactions about 90% of the time. However, I am only able to pay for 4 of those staff members through the motor vehicle fees collected. The balance is paid then with general fund and ad valorem dollars. In 2020, that represented a $452,000 deficit. And can you go to the next slide, please? During the COVID-19 pandemic, many counties had to close their doors to the public or had limited access to the county office buildings. This led to a significant decrease in the amount of facility fees collected. You can see in this Johnson County case study the effect the loss of these facility fees had on the revenues from 2019 to 2020. The facility fee is a big part of the revenue stream for many counties. One thing many counties learned during the pandemic was ways to provide services to customers through means other than in person. And we see these type of changes remaining as we go forward into the future. This means counties that relied on those facility fees will need to find other ways to supplement the revenue. The fee structure that exists currently is very complex and has the primary fee that the county gets to retain is the county service fee, and that fee has not changed since 2006. Counties do get to receive several other fees that are built into the transaction, and they're not separated on the tax receipt, and it makes it very difficult and it's not transparent to explain to our customers. And just to give you an example, on a registration, for every registration, the county retains 75 cents, and out of every title, the county gets $2, but that's not broken out on the receipt. It is our intention by showing you this information that it will allow us to open up a dialogue where we may revisit the motor vehicle fee structure sometime in the future. It is our goal to see a fee structure that embodies the following goals: transparency, where every customer would know exactly what they're paying for; sustainability, that the fees would fully cover the cost of the motor vehicle operation at the county level; consistency, we could eliminate the facility fee, which will make fees consistent among all counties; and a fee that would allow innovation, which will allow us to have the funds required to replace computer equipment, and it will allow us to look at technology improvements to improve the delivery of the services to our customer. And like Joe said, I will be happy to answer questions at the end.
Thank you very much. Next up, we have Mr. Larry Maw, Shawnee County Treasurer. Welcome to the committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, committee members, for the opportunity to speak to you today. I'm Larry Mall, Shawnee County Treasurer, and I have the honor to just take a couple of minutes to talk about the impact that the pandemic had on the Treasury and motor vehicle operations and our reaction to the pandemic. I think you all would agree with me that paying taxes and registering motor vehicles is never going to be at the top of anyone's favorite to-do list. And certainly the pandemic did not help our popularity with our restricted access and the stress of potential infection. Like everyone else, we suffered from social distancing, school closing, staff members in quarantine, and especially from the frustrations of the public. We tend to be the main face of the public at the county level, and all the frustrations that the public was feeling as far as the pandemic was concerned seemed to land right in our office. Perfect place to land. During the last 14 months, our operations have undergone significant changes. The KCTA conducted a survey and we had 82 respondents. If you'll go to the next slide. You can see from this slide that the response and the impact on the various counties was quite varied. It depended on the county size, as well as the facility configurations, and in many cases, the county health officer mandates. Next slide, please. Most of our offices constructed physical barriers in the form of plexiglass. We also implemented restricted access policies. The workspaces were modified, and we put in mask-wearing policies to reduce the transmission between the public and within our workforce. Where possible, employees were permitted to work from home. The online renewal system was enhanced to allow for renewal of expired plates. To reduce wait times and control crowd sizes, 6 counties implemented new queuing systems and 16 implemented online appointment systems. Several counties developed a process by which you could register a newly purchased vehicle by either drop-off or mail, thus eliminating direct contact. The title by mail and the appointment systems have proven very popular with the public and will most likely remain after the pandemic is over with. 37 counties installed drop boxes to collect property payments and motor vehicle documents. Johnson County's self-service kiosks proved beneficial. Sedgwick and Shawnee County are hoping to bring on kiosks later this year. We go to the next slide, please. Okay. On a much less technical level, the continuity of service was achieved with the treasurers and their staffs being creative, sometimes working in parking lots to service customers, as well as setting up tables on the sidewalks in front of the courthouse. And despite the exposure of the virus, the potential for exposure to the virus, our staffs were able to adapt and persevere. And I'll be glad to answer any questions you might have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mall. Next, we have Amy Meeker, Johnson County Deputy Treasurer. Okay, very good. Thank you. Committee, are there questions? Representative Seibert.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and this could be for anybody. I've gotten several county commissioners that called me in our area, South Central Kansas, and when they set up the tags and the tax part of it, they set up your wall, but they made a 15-minute interim. People go in there to get a tag or pay their taxes on a vehicle, and there's nobody at any of the windows, but they won't let anybody walk in and sign up for it. They have to have an appointment. Commissioners don't understand that. Why, if there's nobody being in there, nobody at any of the stations, and one in particular has 3 people taking it, they're all separated out of like 6 stations, that nobody can help somebody that walks in there, and nobody's in there doing anything. Is there a reason for that?
I can't speak for the other counties. I'll speak for Shawnee County. What we find is that our customers don't space themselves out equally. They tend to come in at 8 o'clock, 10 o'clock, noon, and 3 o'clock. So we can have periods where our office has very few people in for service, and then we'll look up and there's 20 people standing at the doorway. If you have limited space within the office, if you can't control the flow of folks, then you have to put things in like appointments. That way, that forces the flow to even out. So it's not so much that they couldn't serve those folks, it's just trying to control the number of people that hit the door at one time. You know, we have kind of a joke in our office. We will be empty and we'll look up and there's 20 people standing, one in the door at the same time. And we ask if they all came in on the same bus, or if there's actually a sign outside that says collecting groups of 20. It's kind of human nature. We all go to lunch at noon. We take our breaks at 10 o'clock. Certain facilities change shifts at 3 o'clock here in Shawnee County. We know they're coming. So the reason we've done that with appointments is that we can spread the load out, and that way we don't have lots of people hitting us at one time and a limited space and everybody standing in that space and then backing up. So I hope that answers your question.
It pretty much does, and I can see it in a big county, but I'm talking about small counties where there's only one person walks in the door, there's no line, and there's 3 people standing there doing nothing and they won't wait on them. I could see, like you said, if 20 people show up or they go down at lunchtime, I got that. But the county commissioner was complaining to me that he talked to them, of course, they're under the state, and they said that was a statewide rule. So that was what he was wanting to see if we could change. And again, like I said, I understand it if it's in Wichita or Kansas City, but I'm talking about counties of 7,000 to 10,000 people.
Again, I can't speak for an individual county. I will just say there was no state rule and nothing that was issued to tell us exactly how to do that. We had to look at our individual circumstances and make that judgment call.
Okay, one more with that. So what you're saying, it's the local county treasurer that makes the decision, and that was what she was saying, that it was a state law that she has to do that. So that
Yes.
clarifies
You
my
are
question.
correct.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Representative Del Perdang.
I just wanted to add, I would hope if you were getting contacted by county commissioners, I would hope that county commissioner, I tried to keep my county commissioners informed on what we were doing in the office because I look at it as that we're a team in our county, and I would hope it would be the same way everywhere. I wonder if possibly, if maybe they were talking about the driver's license offices for driver's license renewals, because I know they were appointment only statewide, where in counties, I mean, in my county, we never were appointment only statewide. So that's why when you said that it was something I'm just posing that question. I don't know. I'm making that thought, but it's a possibility anyway. Go ahead.
And that's exactly right. But one of the counties, they do a great job. You know, they schedule them. But the commissioner said he did talk to the treasurer, and then she said that it was a statewide. So that's why I just was trying to find a verification on it.
Yeah, no.
So I can answer him back.
Thank you very much for that
Thank you.
clarification. I appreciate it.
Representative Del Perdang.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Question I wanted to ask is Ms. Hager, am I pronouncing it right? Thank you. The only reason I'm picking on you is because of the topics you hit on where you got into motor
Yeah, they
vehicle
gave me the
taxes.
hard one to do.
And I realize what I'm going to ask you about is motor vehicle taxing and tagging, okay? And I realize part of it's state fee, part of it county, et cetera, et cetera. But for example, on real property, real estate, if I've got an issue with how much I'm being assessed on it or appraised, I can set up an appeal and I can go through that process. Is there anything like that with vehicles? In other words, if I've got a fairly new vehicle, but because of commuter processes or so, I'm running 150, 200,000 miles on a 3-year-old vehicle, I'm essentially getting a tax bill for maybe a third of the value of the vehicle each year. So is there any appeals that can be had on that?
I do not believe so at this time. I'm not aware of an appeal process on property tax on motor vehicles.
Would that be a county or is that me with the state?
It would be It would be the state, like Property Valuation Division with
Okay.
the Department of Revenue.
Then I'll hang my head. Appreciate you answering it.
Representative Helgerson.
First, thank you very much for all your service and all of your staff. I'm assuming that you had access to federal funds through the counties and that helped supplement each of your budget with COVID problem. Is that correct? And anyone,
In Riley County, we did receive CARES Act money, and we were able to use that to, they reimbursed us for our plexiglass barriers that we put in. We put all of the items that we needed for disinfecting. In Riley County, we actually were able to use those funds to hire a receptionist that sat in our lobby who kind of helped direct traffic into the treasurer's office. Our office has the most foot traffic, I think, of all of the offices within the county office building. And we felt that it was important to have somebody in place to help mitigate the crowds. We have a queuing system, and if they didn't text themselves in line before they got here, our receptionist would put them in line, would ask them to wait in their vehicle until it was time to come in for their appointment. We were not able to obviously use those dollars to supplement any shortfalls in revenues that we had, but we were able to pay for the necessary items during the pandemic that we needed. And I can let one of the larger counties speak to that as well.
yeah, if they want to briefly,
Shawnee County, pretty much the same in Shawnee County. We spent about $16,000 to put in barriers in our 2 offices. We were reimbursed for that, and we got sanitizing wipes and that sort of thing. Initially, when we contracted to do the appointment system, we were reimbursed for the monthly cost of that, and then we developed our own system, and now we pay for that ourselves going forward.
one final question. The lessons of COVID have been very painful, but for many businesses, including state government, we have seen that the type of delivery systems that we have now changed. I don't know your business, but it sure looks like it's ripe for a whole host of other changes, even to the point of saying maybe the state or the counties have one consolidated service statewide and do more of it through the internet, more of it through mail, and less direct. Again, you know your system, you know your business, but we're seeing that everywhere. Whole different models that would provide as good or better service and possibly cost less money. If you'd like to comment on it, you can, but I've hit you kind of cold. So if you have some thoughts later, it'd be helpful to give it to the committee.
I would agree with you. I think we're going to come out of this better than when we went in. It's been painful, but we've put some things in place that we think are going to be beneficial going forward. And we've introduced some concepts to the public that's going to benefit both the public and our operations. So I agree with you 100% that we will be better because of it.
And then the association, if you have something on paper sometime, share it with the committee and the whole legislature, because I think that we'd be very interested in that.
Good afternoon, Chairman and Committee. Amy Meeker, Johnson County Deputy Treasurer. We agree as well with what you're saying. We've seen some positives out of the negative experience we had with the pandemic, where we are doing more transactions online. I can speak for Johnson County, and we saw our online renewals go up to 90%, which was amazing for us. We really pushed past 80 into 90% online. And then with our title work, we've now implemented a drop-off process. So 30% of our Johnson County customers, we're seeing them consistently drop off their title work. But there is still a cost to doing that business. Doing a title transaction can take up to 20 minutes because of all the paperwork and the system entries that we have to make. And really what we're just looking at is, I think our fee model is kind of upside down in this world. You know, it's encouraging people to come in for us to get more fees, where we don't want to have people come into the office. That's that facility fee. You know, it worked for a while, but now we're really looking at it as being something that's really kind of working against us when people don't want to come into the office, shouldn't have to come into the office, and we can find ways to do things electronically. So we're really hoping to change that fee structure for the better, making it less complex, more simple for customers to understand, and just really break even and get the right amount of revenue to cover the costs. Thank you.
Representative Ballard.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Larry Ma, please. I think when we indicated the amount of money that you received from the federal government for PPE, for the plexiglass and everything else,
Yes.
what else would you say maybe they should have included based on the kinds of experiences you have had with people? What else maybe should the federal government have included that you think should?
Well, I can only speak for Shawnee County. I thought that the funds that Shawnee County got, we had a committee that allocated those funds, and I thought that the committee, even if was part of that committee, did a pretty good job. We tried to get it out to the schools. We focused on the schools, and also to nonprofits that would help public in general. So looking back, I can't say that I would find any fault with what they did or how it was done. It was complicated. It was a bit confusing at times and cumbersome, as any time you're dealing with the federal government and they're giving you money, it becomes cumbersome. But other than that, I thought it worked pretty darn well, actually, given the circumstances and the fact that we were creating this tool, or using this tool on the fly. You know, we didn't have time to think about it and plan for it. We had to do it, and do it quickly. So I thought from a Shawnee County standpoint, it worked very well, and I would invite any of my fellow treasurers up here if they feel differently.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Are there any further questions? I do have one, and anybody is welcome to come up and answer it. I take it that you're going to have a proposal probably next year of what you would like to do with the fees and this type of thing.
Steve Kearney again, on behalf of the Kansas County Treasurers. Chairman, that's exactly, I think that's exactly correct. Over the last few years, these folks have worked fairly tirelessly in trying to develop a model of the fees that their motor vehicle operations, which they perform for the state of Kansas, are breaking even at least. And maybe even more importantly, because the numbers aren't all that huge on an individual to individual basis, even more importantly, transparent. I mean, if you saw that one slide that showed this, you know, ridiculous number of various fees that you pay as a consumer when you go in, it gets pretty hard to discern what you're paying, why you're paying it. Is it different in Gove County than in Shawnee County than in Riley County? And this would make that all uniform and very transparent to the constituents out there and these folks' customers. So that's exactly true, Chairman. We would like to get that in motion and get it passed.
Does anyone else have any questions? Any thoughts? See none, I would like to thank you all for taking the time out of your busy days to come up and visit with us and give us your perspective of what's happening in the counties. And I thank you for that. And I know some of you traveled quite a little distance from Girard. Twice, yes.
Chairman, members of the committee, thank you very much for being so generous with your time to hear this. We appreciate it very much.
We thank you. Committee, we'll move on. First item of business that I would have following the presentation by the county treasurers would be taking a look at final action on Senate Bill 127. Reviser, would you brief us on this, please?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chris Wagner from the Revisor's Office. Good afternoon, committee. Senate Bill 127, if you remember, would make various changes to driver's license statutes. Starting with Section 1, would extend online renewals to an age range of 21 to 64. Same requirements that they have to have had an eye exam within the past year and meet other certain conditions to be able to do that online renewal. It would also allow for online renewal for commercial driver's licenses unless that CDL has a hazardous materials endorsement. And then that CDL online renewal would have to be accompanied by a valid medical examiner certificate and proof of completion of Truckers Against Trafficking training. Moving on to Section 2, this would allow for online renewal notices for renewals and expirations of licenses. This section and Section 3 would also extend certain dates for expired licenses and identification cards. If the person's driver's license or ID card expired after March 12th, 2020, and before March 31st, 2021, they would have until June 30th, 2021 to renew that license or ID card. Finally, in Section 4, this would remove a disqualifier for restricted driving privileges and also strike application fees associated with requests for restricted driving privileges. The effective date on this bill would be Kansas Register, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Further questions for the reviser? Seeing none. Biddy, what is your pleasure on Senate Bill 127? Representative Hoheisel.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Would you like a motion first, or would you?
I would, please.
Okay, I make a motion that we pass out SB 127 favorably.
Okay, and seconded by Representative Ballard. Representative Hoheisel.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I do have an amendment.
Okay. I
And
believe you've passed that out.
yes, sir.
Okay.
If I could request a reviser review the amendment for me.
Reviser Wagner, would you go over the amendment, please?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Committee, what the amendment would add is in Section 4 related to restricted driving privileges. Allow a person who's assessed a fine or court cost for a traffic citation to petition the court to waive payment of that fine or court costs or any portion of those costs. If it appears to the satisfaction of the court that the payment of the amount due will impose manifest hardship on the person or the person's immediate family, the court may waive payment of those costs or modify the payment. This amendment kind of mirrors what is in what it will now be E1, which allows for the waiving of reinstatement fees when applying for restricted driving privileges. So that mirror is pretty much identical. I'd be happy to answer any questions the committee has.
Are there questions? Representative Delberdang.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chris, could you tell me, in your knowledge, is there any databases across the state from county to county as far as fines or traffic violations? What I'm leading to is if a person gets a violation in one county and petitions the court, I can't afford to pay it, and they go to another county and have a similar and a repetitive action there. Is there anything to tie these together that it's happening over and over?
I believe the division keeps some sort of record if someone, I know they do for driving while suspended convictions, they could be forwarded those convictions. As far as court, I don't know if there's some sort of wide database that's kind of out of my knowledge, but it could be more of a case-by-case basis. It's obviously the court would probably take into account previous offenses on a person's driving record if looking at waiving this or not. But yeah, I think it kind of would operate on a case-by-case basis.
Okay, and then the second question, there's nothing in the bill that keeps a person from petitioning the same court over and over and over. It's totally up to the court whether they want to waive it or not. Is that a correct statement?
That's correct. It's at the court or the judge's discretion.
Okay, thank you.
Representative Hoheisel.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. May I explain kind of the thoughts around the amendment?
I beg your pardon?
May I explain the thoughts around?
Yes, you may.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. If nobody else has questions for the revisor. Oh, I'm sorry.
Representative Weigel, for the revisor, please.
Yes. Does this take away the discretion of the judge in traffic court cases? Or, I mean, does it preempt him, or does he still have retained jurisdiction that he can say, well, we're going to waive the fees?
I'm not sure if I understand I think that's kind of what this amendment is getting at, is to allow them some more flexibility to waive those fees. But it's not taking away any of their powers or abilities to do what they see fit with traffic citations.
Okay. The reason I ask that is that I've worked in a lot of jurisdictions, and some jurisdictions will say that if you are going to go to court, like if you want to challenge the citation for whatever it is, that you have to show up and they assess you all these fees, and then if you're found guilty, you pay the fine. Other jurisdictions will say, if you do this or you get a diversion for whatever, then they may lessen the fees. Not so much the fine, but the fees involved. So I was just wondering, you know, and that came back to me, is this somehow going to circumvent or short circuit the discretion of the judge, who I'm assuming has the final authority on any fines or fees that are levied?
Yes, that's correct. Sorry, Chris Wagner from the Revisor's Office. I think this is more of a situation where there's a manifest hardship waiver. So all those situations where, you know, they could plea down their fines or something, but all of that is available still. This is more just a particular set of manifest hardship scenario.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Further questions for the revisor? Hearing none, Representative Hoheisel, you may talk about your amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So a couple of weeks ago, we had a discussion in committee on a driver's license bill that we heard. I ran an amendment on that bill. There was a miscommunication with us in the Supreme Court on that bill, and they were unable to implement what we were wanting in that. And so this language here, by adding this in, is actually compromised. That came from the Kansas Supreme Court. Sean Jurgensen, just to answer your question, Representative, just actually messaged me a second ago that this does not take away any judge's discretion. This is compromise language agreed to by Americans for Prosperity, Kansas Appleseed, and the Kansas Supreme Court. Like I said, it's a good faith effort to start to address this issue. Again, my county has about half, Sedgwick County has about half the suspended driver's license in the state of Kansas. I see Ed Klump in here. I kind of ran this by Ed before he came in. Ed said that they were fine with it as well. They didn't have any reservations. We all understand that we need to address this. I think this is a good faith effort to start addressing it, and it's very minimal. And again, this doesn't take away any judge's discretion at all. And with that, Mr. Chair, I'll move my amendment.
Thank you, and I appreciate that explanation, because that helped a bunch of trying to understand it and where it's coming from. I just want to make sure, as this thing does move forward, does it really clear up an issue, or does it impose additional ones for possible abuse? And I don't want to see that happen.
I understand that sentiment. I don't think that this would open it up. There's going to be abuse in everything. I'm not going to say that there won't be abuse in this, because there's going to be abuse in anything we do to help address this issue. But I really do think this is just a good-hearted attempt to start addressing the issue. And I foresee any kind of abuse being very minimal.
Thank you.
Anybody else have any questions for the carrier of the amendment? Seeing none, you may close on your amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I close.
You've heard the motion by Representative Hoheisel to amend Senate Bill 127. All in favor signify by saying
Mr.
aye.
Chairman, sorry, this is Chris. Was there a second on that motion? I might have missed it online.
I had Representative Ballard, yes.
Okay, thank you.
All opposed, no.
No.
The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. Would you like your vote recorded?
No.
Okay, thank you. We'll move on to the next one, and that would be Senate Bill 167. Revisor Wagner, briefing, please.
Just thinking of Sharon. Chris Wagner from the Revisor's Office again. Sorry, I'm getting my papers organized. Okay, Senate Bill 167 would classify certain public utility vehicles as authorized emergency vehicles. Those vehicles would get all the rights and duties of authorized emergency vehicles. And then the bill would also exempt those vehicles from having to get county designation to be, again, defined as authorized emergency vehicles. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Are there questions for the revisor? Representative Delperdang.
Thank you, Chairman. Chris, thank you again on this. One thing that's sticking out to me is, it's just got me a little bothered here, is under, for example, on section 1B on the first page here, it talks about engaged in work on the highway whenever there is such blah, blah, blah. But it names out a couple of times highway. So does this bill, will this still apply if it's a county road, any other road or encroachments, et cetera, or is it strictly for highways only?
I believe you're probably referring to the substitute or the proposed substitute bill amendment. But I don't think it was presented yet.
It's on the first page, and it's just item B. It's the first time it shows up, but it shows up under C and a few other places too.
Okay, yeah, that's on the proposed House substitute rather than what the bill is currently. But we can move on to that if.
I am sorry. I am sorry. You got me on that. Scratch that last question.
I'll answer at the appropriate time.
Are there any other questions for the revisor? Seeing none, Representative Hoheisel.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move we pass out Senate Bill 167 favorably.
Okay, is there a second? Second by Representative Ballard. Representative Hoheisel.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I do have an amendment.
Okay.
And it has been passed out.
Thank you. It's been passed out.
And I think Vice Chair Delperdang has already read some of it.
Yes, he has. Representative Topliker.
Are we on to questions yet about the?
I think we're going to do Mr. Chair.
Yeah, let's let the revisor go over it, and then we'll have questions. Is that all right? Revisor Wagner, would you go over the, I guess it would be a proposed House substitute for Senate Bill 167. Is that correct?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I decided to have the amendment presented this way since the entire bill would be crossed out and this would be the substitute bill. But this would as I said, strike out those other, the definitions and no longer classify these vehicles as authorized emergency vehicles. And it's rather kind of creating a move over law in a couple different scenarios. So I guess I'll start with there are two definitions created in this new section. One would be motor vehicle operated by an authorized person, or the defined term would be authorized utility or telecommunications vehicle. And that would mean a motor vehicle operated by an authorized person for an electric or natural gas utility when such motor vehicles are utilized for repairs that are needed on utility equipment to restore services, and they're making use of visual signals meeting the requirements of 8-1731, which is amber lights. And then it would also be a motor vehicle operated by a provider. So those are similar definitions to what we heard in the last bill, but that would be the defined term for this new section. Starting off in subsection A, it states that a driver should not overtake and pass another vehicle when approaching within 100 feet of a stationary authorized utility or telecommunication vehicle. And subsection B, the driver shall yield the right of way to an authorized utility or telecommunication vehicle or pedestrian actually engaged in work on the highway whenever such vehicle displays flashing lights meeting the requirements of KSA 8-1731. And then subsection C is more the classic move over law, where if someone's approaching one of these vehicles that's actually engaged in work upon the highway, when they're displaying the lights, the driver shall move over if possible with due regard to road, weather, and traffic conditions. If they're on a 4-lane highway, and if they're not on that type of highway, they either have to proceed with due caution, again with regard for road, weather, and traffic conditions. The section shall not operate to relieve the driver of one of those vehicles from the duty to drive with due regard. And then it's making it part of the Uniform Act. So essentially, this is combining some various move over and kind of like side of the road laws that we have in statute. And with that explanation, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
We'll start with Representative Topliker. Do you have a question you'd like to ask the reviser?
I was just going to ask if the opponents of the original bill were satisfied with this amendment, or have they seen it?
Representative Hoheisel.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, this is actually compromise language by both sides, including Mr. Klump again and the peace officers, as well as League of Municipalities, the telecom workers and the utilities. So this is basically compromise language from all sides that addressed all the issues. And from my understanding, all sides are fine with this compromise.
Representative Del Perdang.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, Chris, same question back at you. I just wanted to clear it up in my own as far as, is it only apply to highways or is it other roads or in general?
Yes, that's correct. Highway is kind of essentially the term for state roads. So county roads and city roads are kind of on their own jurisdiction. So when we refer to highway, it would be, and we pick up a definition from the Uniform Act, so it's kind of an outdated definition, but highway means the entire width between the boundary lines of every way publicly maintained. So any public road used for vehicular travel.
Okay, and may I continue, Chairman? Okay, then it also reads, let's see, driver of utility or telecommunications vehicle that is obviously and actually engaged in work upon a highway. So the next question I've got is, what if they're not actively engaged? Is it okay to blow by these people if they're sitting there, if they're doing surveys, or if they're discussing what they're going to do, they're not actually engaged in the work at that time?
That's correct. The violation only comes into effect, again, whenever they're actually engaged in work, and that could be just depending on the circumstances, what that means. But I think the big prerequisite is that they're using their flashing lights. That's when a violation would occur, is if someone does not adhere to these rules. Again, when they're engaged in work and the lights are flashing.
Okay. And then as you're approaching the vehicle, if it's on a highway, for example, you're running 60, 70 mile an hour and you're approaching these, obviously, again, common sense is going to tell you people present, flashing lights, move over. But same token, where this is applying to specifically utility or telecommunications vehicles, the other question that hits me is, I'm not going to know specifically what kind of a vehicle that is until I've already passed it and seen the placards on the side of the vehicle. So I'm just kind of questioning the wording of it. Overall, I think it's a great bill. I'd like to see something even stronger put in place for the move-overs, but I just want to make sure we're getting it right.
Representative Helgerson.
Chris, could I have the definition of 8-1731 of what lights that means?
Yes. So that statute only allows the secretary to adopt rules and regulations, but that regulation specifies that they can be equipped with amber lights, so the orangish looking kind of color.
What other lights besides amber?
That regulation only specifies amber lights.
So an emergency vehicle that has, or if a vehicle has amber lights, they qualify?
That is correct. They have to be displaying those lights.
Okay. In new section 1A reads, the driver of a vehicle shall not overtake and pass another vehicle when approaching within 100 feet of stationary authorized utility or telecommunication vehicle. First, is a telecommunication vehicle a subcontractor of a utility?
Sorry, I'm reading the definition again to make sure I get this correct. For a telecommunication, so as I said, it all kind of depends on what the defined term in subsection E is. So for a telecommunication, it's a motor vehicle operated by a provider. It doesn't really specify if that means a subcontractor or an employee.
Well, in particular, I'm thinking of Cox, who now subcontracts a lot of their employee work. And so they're subcontractors. The truck is sometimes labeled, sometimes it's not labeled, but the individual will be doing telecommunications work. Do they qualify or not qualify? While you're thinking about that,
yes.
It doesn't say in that section that it just applies to highways. And I'm wondering, where does it say? Because in Wichita area, you could have a telecommunication worker pull on the side of a road, pull on the side of a street, and suddenly you can't pass them, and you wouldn't be able to, you'd have to stop. As I read it, it says, shall not overtake and pass another vehicle when approaching within 100 feet of a stationary authorized utility or a telecommunication vehicle. And I'm just wondering, is there something else I'm missing? If a subcontractor pulls on this road, stops, puts on an amber light, puts out a cone, which they do quite often, and it is a 2-lane road, which happens to be just exactly what it is in front of my house, then you're not able to go past them.
Representative, I think subsection A, that's more of a vehicle to vehicle. So you cannot pass another vehicle on the road. That is not referring. So when you're approaching a stationary utility vehicle and you're driving next to someone, say, you cannot pass the other driver. It's not referring to you cannot pass the utility vehicle. If that answers your question.
Okay, but if it is a stationary utility vehicle, and you're saying that it refers somewhere else to highway, new section 1 refers to only highways and not to county or cities of the 3rd or 4th class.
Sorry, I believe I misspoke earlier. Highway would include city and county roads. It's pretty much any public roadway that's
Okay.
not private. So I'm sorry for that, but.
If I'm not mistaken, we have just created a possibility where a subcontractor stops, and I'll use my example, stops in front of my house, comes to fix my cable telephone, and no one can go down that street. And if I'm wrong, please correct me.
Okay, Chris Wagner from the Revisor's Office again. Again, if you're referring to subsection A, that's still just referring to you cannot pass another driver on the road. You can go past the utility vehicle. And again, for the move over part of the law, if you're on, say, a 2-lane road, you cannot get over. You still just have to approach them, slow your speed, and approach them with due regard, to the weather and traffic conditions. But again, subsection A just refers to a scenario where you're traveling next to another person's vehicle. There are 2 cars, and those 2 cars are approaching the utility vehicle. You cannot perform a passing maneuver for that other, and try and overtake that other vehicle. It's not referring to the utility vehicle in that circumstance.
Mr. Wagner, when we get down to number 2, doesn't that pretty well say that, That's really what you're saying, isn't that correct?
I'm sorry, could you repeat the question, Mr. Chairman?
It was when you move on down in the first page to item number 2, says if a driver is not traveling on a highway of a type described in paragraph 1, if the driver is traveling on a highway of what type it's not possible to change lanes or to do so would be unsafe, the driver is to proceed with caution, reduce speed, et cetera. Isn't that basically what you're saying? You can't just pull out and pull around the other vehicle. You've got to use some good common sense and wait.
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. Representative Proctor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. For the revisor, I just want to make sure, when we were talking about this in the hearing, the concern was the way we had defined these vehicles also unintentionally allowed them to run lights, to travel excessive speed. All that has all been taken care of with this new substitute, correct?
That is correct, Representative. They would no longer be defined as an authorized emergency vehicle.
Thank you.
Are there other questions? Representative Minix.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. When we worked this bill, I asked for a definition of emergency vehicles. Legislative research gave that to me, and under KSA 8-1404, there's a list of dedicated types that are emergency vehicles. And then under KSA 8-2010C, there's a list of vehicles that county commissioners may. Did everybody receive the same information? Well, I'm curious as to if we change what we're trying to change here, how that affects, and do county commissioners, or is this going to be taken over by the state as designating emergency vehicles? And under this, it says the flashing lights must be red or red and blue or red and white. This goes, it's totally replaced? Is that what's happening, Chris?
I wouldn't say replaced all of those provisions. Nothing is stopping a Board of County Commissioners from possibly still designating these vehicles as authorized emergency vehicles. What this substitute bill does more is create traffic violations. And I'm sorry, and that brings me up to another point that I forgot. On page 7, you'll see that we are creating a new traffic violation for violating any of these provisions. And that penalty is $105. So what this substitute bill does more now is create a new traffic new traffic violation rather than going into defining any of these vehicles as authorized emergency vehicles and giving them additional powers. But all of that is still available if a board of county commissioners wanted to designate vehicles as such.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Representative Jacobs.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Revisor, on page 4, at the very bottom, second line up, 8-1531, failure to yield to pedestrian or vehicle working on roadway. And as you pointed out on page 7 in the same location, wouldn't we be pretty redundant on this where it says failure to yield to pedestrian or vehicle working on roadway? Thank you, Mr. Chair.
So yeah, it is a similar violation, but that is strictly referring to highway construction workers, 8-1531. That violation is for construction workers. So it is a similar, and we borrowed language from that statute to apply it to these utility and telecommunications vehicles.
Are there further questions? Seeing none, Representative Hoheisel.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, so we heard the concerns the other day when hearing this bill, especially from our law enforcement community, about some pitfalls in it. And again, they were coming from good heart and they agree that they did want to address this issue. So all stakeholders got together and negotiated. And this is the product they came up with. And like I said, the law enforcement community, League of Municipalities, the utilities and telecom workers and companies, they all support this compromise bill. So here we are. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Representative Ballard.
Thank you. And I talked with 2 of the parties with this, and they were satisfied with it as well. So that's why I seconded it.
Okay, Revisor Wagner, do we move this as a substitute bill, or do we do the amendment first? Or do we do it as a substitute for Senate Bill 167?
I would adopt the amendment and then do a substitute bill motion
All right.
after that. That's
all right. Thank you. Representative Hoheisel, will you move your
I
amendment?
move my amendment, yes, sir.
You've heard the motion to amend by Representative Hoheisel. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay.
No.
The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. Do you want your vote recorded?
No.
Okay. We're back. We need a motion to make this a House substitute for Senate Bill 167. Representative Hoheisel.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Do we need, we're passing out as this House substitute?
Yes.
Okay. I move that we pass out House substitute for Senate Bill 167.
Representative Ballard, are you the second on that? Okay. Is there any discussion? Representative, you may close.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, committee, for all the questions on this. I know it's kind of bad form at times to kind of do a whole substitute and a whole new bill, but thank you for your indulgence and the questions on this. I close, Mr. Chair.
You've heard the motion to move House substitute for Senate Bill 167. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. Committee, that completes our work. I don't anticipate that we'll have any meeting this week, rest of the week, so everybody have a safe weekend. Representative Ballard. I do. I missed that. Thank you. Committee, we do have some minutes, I'm sorry. I just overlooked it. We have minutes for March 16th, 17th, and 18th. They were sent out on the 19th. Is there a motion to approve the minutes? Motion by Representative Seibert, second by Representative Ballard. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. We are adjourned.